Thank you, Nikki. On May 17th of 2012, I signed up for a course on resilience. Today, I want to share with you my story and the lessons that I learned. That morning was this ideal, crisp spring morning. I was on a high-speed bike ride training for a national mountain bike event. And I was feeling the flow, attached to the bike attached to the ground, and I'm in and out of every single turn. But bigger than that, I'm feeling the freedom that I felt every single time that I was on a bike. And then about a quarter mile before I'd end that ride, I would go around a sharp turn and I would strike a rock. That rock sent me somersaulting through the air. Head over heels, I could see the ground coming up faster and faster. But with that speed, it was almost as if time slowed down. Seconds felt like minutes. Everything became more vivid as my head got closer and closer until, bam, impact. I'd strike the ground with the front part of my head, jarring my head back and then down. It would drive my eyes through that I could see my knees, the bike, and then the sky. The impact sent shockwaves through my body. My body instantly turned to fire. My hands felt like lightning bolts blazed out of them. I'd finish that somersault, and I would land flat on the ground, jarring my eyes closed, and I'd just lay there. I was scared to death to open my eyes. I had no idea what just happened. But slowly I built up the courage, and I opened up one, and then the next. I found myself laying there staring up at this beautiful blue sky. But then my body instantly comes back online, and the burn is rippling through it. And I instantly try to get up off the ground, and I start pushing, and I go to the left, and I'm trying it again, and I can't move. It's like I'm suction cupped to the ground. When that didn't work, I just started patting myself. And when my hands got to my chest, well, my hands felt my chest, but my chest didn't feel my hands. It was like I was touching something foreign, like a desk or a table. I had no idea what just happened, but the only thing that made sense was this had to be an old football injury. We called it a stinger back in the day. I played the game of football ever since I was 5 years old. From Northeast PA, that's what we grew up doing. And I had my fair share of injuries. Good thing is with a stinger, if you just give it some time, you bounce back. So that's what I did. I looked down at my Garmin watch and I said, go. And at the 30-second mark, I still had nothing back. But I said, just give it some time. Give it some time. And that's what I did. I kept trying to move my feet, kept trying to move my toes, and I looked at my watch. And 1 minute went by, and still nothing. But I said, give it time. Give it time. 1:30 went by, and still nothing. And then at the 2-minute mark, I realized that this was not a stinger, and I was not walking away from this. And my mind instantly jumps back into this world of scrambling to make sense of it, but figure out how I'm getting out of this situation. How am I getting out of the woods? How am I getting out of the woods? And then it dawns on me. You got your phone on you. Your phone's on you. It's in your back pocket. But then, the second thought that jumps into my head, who are you going to call? Well, that person may be a little more terrifying than what just happened, but my wife, Krista. Now, I got to say, she's the most loving, kind, wonderful person I've ever met in my entire life. But I'll tell you this, the second you scare her, startle her, or make her mad, you better be ready for the biggest can of whoop ass to be unleashed on you that you've ever seen. And I knew this was going to startle her. But I said, nonetheless, I got to do this. And so I'm laying on the ground staring up at the sky. And the phone is in this back pocket. I have a cycling jersey on, and there's 3 pockets across the back. The phone sat right here. And I start digging in there. I'm digging, and I could feel the phone. I could feel it, and I'm trying to pull, but my hands aren't working. This is the time I realized that it's not just your legs that aren't working. Your hands aren't moving at all. These are the hands that caught tens of thousands of passes. They've helped me race in some of the toughest races on the planet. They're my identity. They gave me something. And now they won't even pull my phone out of my pocket. I did this for 15 minutes on, trying to grab this phone. 15 minutes off, recovery. 15 on, 15 off. 15 on, 15 off. 3.5 hours later. 3.5 hours later of laying there, claustrophobic by the not being able to move in those woods. 3.5 hours later of not knowing what's around the corner or if I'm ever going home again. Luckily, at that 3.5 hour mark, 2 riders came by and they called for help. I was transported to the hospital, and the first person that I saw was that love of my life, Krista. I went through those doors, and I saw her, and I looked at her in her eyes, and now Krista and I, we've been together since we were 12 years old. We've seen the highs and lows of life. I mean, both of us lost our dads before the age of 16, but we've been able to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries on the shores of Lake Como, Italy, and tour all through Europe together. We've seen a lot, but this time when I looked at her, I just saw the fear ripple through her entire body. And the only thing I could say to her was, I'm sorry. And like she's done so many times for me, she's come over and she just said, everything's going to be all right. I went into a surgery. It took 5 hours where they fixed my C6, C7 vertebrae. They fixed the spinal column, but the spinal cord was already affected. That damage that happened, it left me paralyzed from my chest down with all 4 limbs severely impaired or not working at all. I was told that it would be in the hospital for about 2 weeks in intensive care, but luckily, just 4 days later, I found myself in an outpatient rehab center, dealing with trying to get myself back. Now, this is an important part because, relatively speaking, I'm feeling pretty good at this point. I mean, I've had family and friends fly in from all around the country. It's like a big old darn reunion. We're having a good old time. I'm laying around. I'm extremely optimistic. I'm extremely hopeful. And as crazy as it sounds, I've got this little bit of excitement about this new journey ahead of me. In fact, I had this grand notion that I was going to appear on Oprah. I figured Oprah Winfrey and I would go strutting across the stage, arm in arm. I was going to be this huge success. And y'all know what happens when you're a success on Oprah. You get a car. I thought, bare minimum, I'm leaving there with a laptop. This is when I learned the first lesson of resilience. And that is building your team. You know, Krista's been my chair of that team ever since we were 12 years old. She's the one that keeps my life in perspective. She's the one that gives me the best feedback, and she knows who I am deep down. She makes me feel the way that I need to feel in the perspective of whatever is happening. Family, friends, they all make up that same thing. And when I was there laying in that hospital for those 4 days, they picked me up. They picked me up, they kept me optimistic, and they kept me strong. They're the reason why I got out of that hospital in 4 days. My question to all of you is, who's on your team? The people that are sitting at these tables with you, do you really know who they are? From not just that superficial layer, but deep down inside. Do they challenge you? Do they pick you up when you need it? But do they challenge you in some of your ideas? You know, Krista and I would argue that we are probably the most polar opposites. She argues with me over everything, and I value that and love that more than anything because she makes me think and grow. And that's what this whole team is all about. Now, my team was strong, but I had a lot of work ahead of me. I needed to gain back my independence. And that is when I learned my second lesson of resilience. And that is building your discomfort zone. It's day 5. It's dark. I'm lying in bed. Krista's head is on my chest. And for the first time, I have tears rolling down my face. I lost all hope, and I had hit rock bottom. Earlier that day, I went through this intense, grueling hours and hours of rehab, but it wasn't the intensity that was in how hard it was. It was the revealing nature of what it was. That's when I realized I couldn't sit upright by myself. I couldn't get from wherever I was into the wheelchair by myself. When I got into that wheelchair, I wasn't strong enough to push myself. I would go through that entire day of rehab learning of what I didn't have. When I got back to the room, I was greeted by my physician, Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee was a wonderful doctor, but she was as blunt as they come. And she said, "Tom, we have to move your bowels." And I said, "What?" And it didn't dawn on me, but in 5 days, I hadn't pooped. And now you're all looking at a guy that for majority of his life, I wake up at 5:45, I have my coffee by 5:55, and by 6:15, shoo, right on out. And I said, "Doc, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do this." And she said, "But Tom, your bowels don't work. We have to do a thing called digital stimulation." Digital what? Have any of you ever even heard of such a thing? She explained, and the name of it defined it plenty. And as a 32-year-old man, on top of the world 5 days earlier, I had the wife of my dreams. I had a job that I never felt like I worked at a day in my life. And I had sport that I wasn't only competing at, I was thriving. And it gave me an identity. And now it's all gone. I wasn't going to be walking on stage with Oprah anytime soon. I had lost so much. I hit rock bottom. But then this quote jumped into my head that J.K. Rowling said. And she said, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. And this quote was the thing that fueled me. It gave me energy, and it gave me hope again. It gave me the reality that this is not going to be this injury that defines who I am. I worked too damn hard for 32 years to let an injury define me. And I took this and went into rehab, and I lived in a hospital for the next 3 months of my life, working day in, day out, just to work on the little things. But it wasn't until the 4th month that I would really be tested with my discomfort zone. You know, at this point, Krista was commuting 4.5 hours. We were living in a house in Louisville. She would wake up at 5:30 in the morning to help me get dressed and get ready and drop me off at rehab. She would drop me off, and then she would drive all the way to Indiana, to this university, and she'd work all day long. She'd jump back in that car and do this thing on repeat. And now we were doing this for almost a month, and it was time for her to get back to her life. It was time for her to gain her life back, and it was time for me to gain my independence back. And now, there's no better place to find out if you're truly independent and how you're going to gain back your life than to do everything you can, everything that needs to be done in the bathroom by yourself. Now, I think we could all agree on this. Maybe 10% of the stuff that happens in the bathroom, maybe even quite enjoyable with your partner. I mean, I could get that. But 90% of all the other stuff, you don't want your partner in the bathroom while you're doing it, let alone helping you. So there I am, 4 months into this thing, and I'm staring down the bathroom. It's like the greatest opponent of my entire life. Goal of the night, poop, shower, get back into bed. This is where the story gets good. So here I go. I line up next to the commode. I transfer from the commode or from the chair onto the commode. Do my business. Oh, pretty darn excited. Wondering why it took me 4 damn months to do this by myself. But the next one is a bit of a challenge. This is to the shower bench. A shower bench is roughly about 12 inches away. Now, I use this thing, it's called a slide board. A slide board is a thin piece of plastic, but you could put it under a butt cheek, put it on the other, and then it acts as a bridge. I got to connect the two, go from the commode onto the shower bench. I do that, success. Oh, by the way, I didn't tell you this. Sorry for the image, but butt naked. Except I have these incredible pair of knee-high cream and crimson IU socks on and a pair of tennis shoes. I don't know. It just felt right. And so there I go. And I shimmy out onto this little piece of plastic, and I start going, and I start going. And before you know it, I'm halfway through this, and I'm like this little naked dude sitting on this little bridge going, man, this is pretty easy. And then the very next shimmy, I shimmy, the board pulls out, and I go crashing to the ground. There I am, laying on the ground, staring up at the commode, the wheelchair, and the shower going, what in the hell did you get yourself into now? But I said, no, I'm going to use this adversity, and I'm going to create this opportunity. This is my discomfort zone. For the next hour, I fought to try and get into this wheelchair. Fail, try, fail, try, fail, try, fail. But at that point, I realized I needed to try something different. So a genius idea happened because I looked out into the bedroom and I saw this little chair. It's only 6 inches off the ground. I figured if I could go from the ground onto the 6 inches of chair, I could go from that chair into the wheelchair. I'm back to neutral. Boom. So excited, these ideas that just popped into my head. So there I go, dragging my bare bottom all the way out across the floor. I get up to this chair, and I go from the ground onto the chair. I catch my right corner of the butt cheek, fall back in there, put my hands in the air. You'd swear I just won an Ironman because I'm totally fired up. And I'm laying there in this middle of success. And then I look in to try and jump onto that wheelchair. And I realized 15 feet away where my wheelchair sat in the shower, in the bathroom, I forgot to bring the damn wheelchair with me while I went into the bedroom. Went all the way in there, shimmied across the floor, grabbed the wheelchair, drug the wheelchair back out, set it on up there, and the next 2 hours, I tried and failed, and have no idea how I did it that first time. But it took me time and time again, finally going from the ground up to the wheelchair. But luckily, at that 2 hour mark, I caught the corner of the chair, sat in there, went from the chair onto the wheelchair, and I'm back to neutral. Now, in your heads, think of this. 3 hours of rolling around a bathroom floor, all over the place. I'm tired, I'm sweaty, and I went and stared down that shower bench, as intimidating as it was. And for a brief second, I said, maybe not tonight. You did this, maybe not tonight. And I thought, no, this is going to happen. And with one perfect move, I went onto that shower bench, shimmied on over, and I could still feel the faucet when I turned the handle and the first drop of water hit me in the head, and the second drop, and the more and more, and I'm sitting there showering. And it wasn't just a shower, it was independence. Independence falling back down onto my head. It took me 3 hours, but I did it myself, of failing and coming back and refusing to quit. That night, I gained back my independence because I pushed my discomfort zone. And when I failed, I just kept coming. I gained back my independence, and that was one of the biggest milestones that I've ever had. I ask you all, what do you do to push your discomfort zone daily? Who do you all hang out with? Who do you work with? Who is your mentor? Who are the people that challenge you? I'll tell you who is for me. Tatiana in this front row here. So Tatiana, Kelly School, works at IU. She's also my coach, and she helps me put together these presentations. And I spend half of the time loving and having the utmost gratitude for Tatiana, but I spend the other half of the time wishing one of these legs would work so I could just kick her, because she challenges me every single time. But I am so grateful for that, because what that does is it forces me to grow, and it forces me to be better each and every day. And that's what we're here for, is to continue to keep driving. Now, I want to leave you with a challenge on this. And it's a simple challenge. But for the next 7 days, I want you to go into your shower, wake up bright and early in the morning, but go into your shower and turn that faucet on to ice cold. And I want you to sit in there and take a 1-minute shower. Just 1 minute. And do this for 7 days. Because I guarantee you when the 8th day rolls around, you're going to love it. You'll probably hate it, but you'll love it. Because it'll give you an incredible feedback. It'll make your resilience grow. Because 8 will turn into 10, 10 will turn into 20, and before you know it, you're doing this, and it's making you better each and every time. Having a team, building that team, and working on your discomfort zone, well, they're a must. But a course on resilience would not be complete unless you had the most important lesson of them all, building your attitude. My attitude is surrounded by one word: can. Can is the most powerful word you could ever say. Can is the most powerful word you could ever believe. It's the igniter, the primer. It's the thing for me that gives me hope. I can allows me to say anything is possible. For me to come back to work, I needed to build my attitude based off a can. 1 year after this accident, I came back to a 25,000 square foot weight room, over $4 million worth of equipment, something like, I don't even know, 10 tons worth of weight that make up that place. And I'm coming back to train the most elite athletes on the planet. And I'll be honest with you, I was terrified. But I wasn't terrified for all those reasons. The sheer size of that weight room, the fact that I'm coming back to train elite athletes, and I'm going to teach them how to run, but I think we're all in agreement. I'm not the greatest demo right now. I was scared of one reason, and that's judgment. I was so scared to think what you all were thinking. I was so scared of what those kids were thinking. I just didn't want to be seen different. I wanted to be seen as the coach. I wanted to be seen not as the guy in the wheelchair, but just someone there that's going to make them better. That morning, I came into work, went through the doors, turned around and realized that I needed to go out. I forgot something in my car. So on my way out of the car in the north end zone of the football stadium, I was rolling and I nailed this little curb. All of a sudden, flying through the air, smack down on the ground, day one of work. The other part of the story is I fall an awful lot, but I just keep getting back up. So there I am laying there on the ground, flat on the ground, struggling to get back in the chair. To make matters worse, the entire baseball team is walking by. They quickly yell over, they ask for help. 2 guys come over, they say, what do they need? What do I need? I tell them, just pick me up, throw me back in the chair. And so they do. They go on their merry way. I sat there in front of that north end zone, looking at my car, just saying, I think I'm going to go home. I think I'm going to go home. I mean, am I crazy to even think that? I mean, what would you do? But I thought, you know what? I woke up this day, and I already said, I can do this. I can do this. And I turned back around, and I went back downstairs, waiting to be talked to, waiting for the coaches to come over and be worried, athletes to be, you all right, you all right? And they didn't do anything. I just trained the team. And then time went on, and I thought, surely someone's going to say something. And then nothing. And then 3 months go by, and I finally tell this story. And I told the coach, and the coach said, man, I'm really sorry. No one said a word. I'm like, no sorry needed. Those kids never said anything. In fact, no one ever said anything. One of my biggest fears of judgment, I realized, was my fear, and it was me. Now I ask all of you, how many things do you not do because you're so scared of what others are going to think of you? I mean, how many of those things are holding you back for it? Luckily, my can attitude, luckily, that was the thing that pushed me in there, because I realized that none of that stuff really matters. People aren't really thinking it anyway. On May 17th of 2012, I signed up for a course on resilience. I've learned a lot of valuable things, and the three main things are about building a team. It's about building your discomfort zone and building a can attitude. Before this accident, I trained some of the most elite athletes on the planet. I taught them how to run. I taught them how to lift. I taught them how to do all these different things. I myself competed in some of the toughest races on the planet. I swam, I biked, I ran. I did all of that. After the accident, I'm doing the exact same. I'm back training those elite athletes. I'm back teaching them how to do everything I did before, just a little bit different. And I'm back involved in sport. I'm back kayaking and skiing and doing all the different things. I just got to do it a little different. Oh, and yes, I'm back racing. We have a new thing. We make sure we know each and every where we are. I've been able to gain my life back because of one reason. I can. My question to all of you is, can you? Thank you. Any questions?
I'm curious, you were obviously an elite athlete before your accident, and you obviously had an attitude that was you were going to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people who have also or people who've had accidents, or just people in general, does something like that change that? I'm wondering if somebody who didn't have that attitude before, can they develop that after, or can people change? If they didn't have the attitude, can they change it?
I believe you could change an attitude at any point in your life. I think having an attitude is not a genetic thing. It's not anything. It's a choice. And for me, life is about making the choice. And how you view things to how you are going to prepare yourself, it always comes back to the choice of doing that. So before this accident, I practiced hard things with the intent to make things not so hard in a sense. And I think it paid dividends, after the accident, because I already prepared for it. But everything that we do in life is a preparation. So even when we're talking about athletes, they're only training and practicing so that the games become a lot easier. And for us right now, everybody sitting in this room, you need to start practicing things so that when the game is in your face, the game becomes easier. My game ended up happening on May 17th of 2012. Toughest game I've ever played. But it was the preparation that led up to that, and it was the intent on there. I believe that at any point, no matter what age, no matter what you're doing, you could start really preparing that and continually working on adapting and changing that attitude. But it all comes down to the choice of doing that.
You said that when you had your accident, you obviously could move your arms some, but not your hands. How long did it take before you could use your hands and arms?
So when I laid in the hospital the very first day, I was able to reach up, and there's a story, and we won't tell it right now, but it's where I reached up, and the doctor told me that I would have to be Krista would have to be my caregiver and help me to do all the things of life all the time. And I remember reaching up and inherently just wanting to grab this cracker because we were doing this speech deal. And when I reached in to try and grab that cracker, with all my might, I tried to squeeze those two fingers together, and luckily it held on there and I was able to feed myself. And that little movement just gave me hope that it was going to happen. And so from every day, I worked to squeeze the fingers and try and get it. And each day, it took days and days and days to be able to start moving my hands and moving my, be able to touch all the different fingers. But it took me well over four or 5 months of every single, not even day thinking about it, but every second thinking about it, having a conversation and sitting there and just trying to do this, just trying to move these little things and continue to keep moving. But luckily at the 4-month mark, I really had some dexterity that came back in my hands. My right arm was a lot stronger than my left, but my left arm, instead of being able to pick it up and dropping, it would actually start getting it. But it was kind of this mindset of every single moment trying to do something to just make that thing a little bit better.
So you talked to us a lot today about how we get the best out of you and like how you get the best out of yourself, but you're one of the most talented coaches I've ever been around. What is your number one tip for people getting the best out of other people?
It always comes back to it. But so when I do it with athletes and how we do it, I think you have to have a genuine care. You have to know who a person is, not on a superficial layer. Getting someone stronger is so easy. And as a strength coach, I think that's what we're kind of so associated with, the superficial stuff. We got someone stronger and fitter and whatever. But it's the years later of being invited to those weddings and being able to, like, kids come into town and they're showing up at your house. Our door, it's unbelievable, but the doorbell will ring at 9:30 at night, and there's these 3 enormous men that are standing there, and I'm like, uh-oh. But they end up being Krista's football players and all these, because what it is about that care. It's about that layers in there of deep talk and understanding of how to make someone click. So when you're ever on any team or on any relationship, if you don't care, you're not going to get the best out of it. If your people don't care, they don't think you care, they're not going to go that extra mile for you or that extra inch. So if there's anything I could tell you is definitely get to know someone from deep inside and really genuinely care about how they are. Oh, that's such a good question. I don't ever think that was. So from the very first moment, I accepted this, and I just believe in whatever happens, happens. And, I talk about even, this is kind of on subject with that, to answer that question, but ground zero, was able to come back to ground zero. Like where it happened, I have this new fancy mountain bike, has this little Tesla motor on it, I could talk about it for days. But it's able to get me back to these places that I've never been before. And I remember going into it going, man, this is going to be a great time to push my discomfort zone. I don't really want to do this, but I want to. And so I ended up going back to that place. And the reality is it just was nothing for me. I didn't have a lot of emotion. I didn't have a lot of anything. And for this injury, believe it or not, it just happened. And it was just this process and this excitement of learning this new me. So I just basically just decided, I'll put 1 foot forward, or I won't put any feet forward, and I'll put an arm forward, but I'm just going to be the person that I can be and maximize whatever this is. And so I never had this reality of like, man, I'm going to be different. I am going to be different. I'm just going to be me, and I'm just going to do it and see how my body responds, and whatever it ends up, it ends up. Yeah, it's not a great answer, because I don't have any kind of exact, but it's a person that's going to demo how to run a 40-yard sprint or do any of that stuff. So I've kind of been fast-tracked into that older age and have to use my words a lot better. But what I think it's done is it's given me more longevity as far as what I'm going to do in the coaching field. So it's given me the ability to really articulate what my message is going to be without all the demoing. But the other part is it's made me a better coach because I've almost slowed down a little bit and gotten a lot better at understanding the present, being where I'm at right now and understanding how valuable that is. And before it was just so fast track. It was always about the next step, the next step, the next step. And this injury has made me go, man, take a breather a second and then understand what the present is and how you feel and try to relay that to the athletes, because that is something that I think 18 to 20-some-year-olds are missing out on, because it's always about the next step, always about moving on, and they're not being present in the fact of our athletes at IU are living the dream right now, and they're always so worried about the next step. So I'm always trying to relay that to them, and I didn't have that perspective before this. and laying around. I'm bored and laying around. Like I have just no energy and I don't feel like I'm not motivated. But when I am busy and going, like Tatiana will keep me going. The other night she calls at 9:30 and she wants to FaceTime to go over the speech. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do. But what it did, what? But felt like 9:30. Yeah. But it gave me energy. And so after that, I didn't want to sleep because I had all this new stuff. And so energy creates energy, but you got to get yourself involved in stuff like that. And I just think people are the greatest motivators. I mean, if you could surround yourself with good people, good teams, good environments in any walk of life, it's going to create challenges for yourself. So I'd say, number one, literally look at who you're surrounding yourself by. And then if that's not motivating you and igniting you, find someone else. Because you're living, if you live in Bloomington or anywhere around here, I mean, people are here to challenge you. People are here to really get yourself involved, and it's actively getting involved in that. But I'll go as generic as saying, man, try and learn a new language. Because I'm telling you, when you're trying to just learn little things, it's unbelievable how much you put energy into this. It gives you energy back. And then before you know, you're trying to learn the language, but now you're all of a sudden doing this or that you never thought were possible. But you got to get the ball rolling somewhere. And that's my whole belief on anything. On the little things, he kept a great amount of gratitude for everything that was around, and he spoke about humbleness. And to be humble and be present and genuinely care about your athletes was something he preached time in and time out. And he used that as an example to those athletes. And so for me, when I was able to have that fortunate opportunity to work for him for those 4 years, it taught me a lot. It taught me about the ability, the gratitude I have to be able to coach for one thing and the influence you're going to have, but then also the ability that no matter where you're at, if you're at Penn State football dominating or if you're wherever right now, to keep that humbleness in there and just remember that you're there to teach those kids and you're there to be that influence. And I would say if there's anybody, that was definitely one that he taught us a lot.